It's been 2 weeks since the Rams won the Super Bowl. Let's take a look at football prices since then and do some forecasting for next year. Hey everyone, thanks for stopping back for another episode of Data Dive. My name is Tyler Nethercott, better known as Teapot. He did it. My guy Matthew Stafford really did it. As a lifelong Lions fan, having seen Stafford give his all year after year in Detroit, I was elated for him when he got traded to the Rams. In many ways, I felt more loyalty and appreciation for Stafford than I did for the Lions organization. So to see him connect with Kupp for the winning touchdown, the chemistry between those two guys all season long, it was really something special. And you gotta love Aaron Donald getting a ring, arguably the most dominant player in the league on either side of the ball for several years now. Of course, I also felt for the Bengals fans. Maybe other than the Browns, no other franchise has more closely resembled the Lions since the 90s. Those fans deserve this, but in spite of the loss, you gotta imagine they're still feeling pretty optimistic. Joe Shiesty is the real deal, and today I want to take a look at his prices, along with several other players, to see what has happened since their seasons ended, and to try to predict what might happen in the future. As always, this episode is brought to you by Market Movers. Market Movers has the largest database of vetted cards, now tracking 530,000 cards. Visit marketmoversapp.com today to see which plan might be right for you. All right, before I get into this, as always, I am not a financial advisor. We're going to use historical data to theorize about what could happen in the future. These things are far from certain, and I always encourage you to do your own research and to leave your thoughts and predictions down below in the comments. With that being said, does Joe Burrow remind you of anyone so far this point in his career? Do you know of any other quarterbacks who lit the world on fire and wound up in the Super Bowl at the age of 25? Patrick Mahomes is probably the best comparison we're going to get for Burrow. In actuality, the statistical comparisons aren't really that close. Mahomes and Burrow both threw exactly 35.5 passes per game through their first two seasons played. However, Mahomes averaged 25 more yards per game and an impressive 0.7 touchdowns more per game. Mahomes also went 23-7, while Burrow went 12-13-1. And obviously, Mahomes won his first Super Bowl try. So Burrow just came up short. But if we snap the chalk line right now and we look forward to the future, it seems undoubtedly very bright for Burrow and for Bengals fans, just like it has been and could be and can continue to be for Mahomes. So let's start out looking at what happened to Mahomes' prices 2 years ago when he initially won the Super Bowl. And what's really important here is that prices went up right after Mahomes won the Super Bowl. So what I've done is I've pulled up a chart of several of his cards, several of his rookie cards, and I'm just gonna scroll down and kind of show you in the card stats. This is basically right after, in the month and a half after Mahomes won the Super Bowl back in 2020. And scrolling down, you can see that the vast majority of his cards did go up. There's a handful of them, including his silver rookie card, which probably already had a lot of momentum and hype behind it. That was kind of a leading indicator as it started to trend down, but several of these cards started to go up. Now, it's not enough to always just look at these numbers. We need to actually ask ourselves the question, why? Numbers can vary, especially over time, trends change. But when we ask ourselves why, I think the big thing behind Mahomes 2 years ago when he won was hype, momentum, inertia. Mahomes started out his career breaking almost every possible passing record milestone. He missed out on the Super Bowl his sophomore year, potentially because of a bad coin flip rule, which obviously played into the Chiefs' favor this year. He was officially dubbed, though, the heir apparent when he lost to Brady and then he won the Super Bowl. So when you look at something like this, I think young player, we already know that when these guys come out into the draft and they make it into the league, they get a lot of that hype behind them. And he was living up to the hype through that point. So when he won that title, people are wondering, oh my gosh, is this actually somebody who maybe has a chance to pass and surpass what Tom Brady has just done, what we've seen him do? Obviously time, will tell, but I think that's why the prices went up on Mahomes cards after he won the Super Bowl. Now, we can go over and we can look at the chart and see what happened to Mahomes and Brady prices, both of their cards, last year in 2021. After obviously Brady won the Super Bowl, Mahomes lost. Same thing here, I've pulled up some key rookie cards for both of these guys, and if I scroll down, a little bit of a different story here. You can actually see that both of their cards went down. If I'm scrolling down, both Brady and Mahomes card prices immediately started to take a dive within those first few weeks to 6 to 8 weeks after the Super Bowl. Now, I wasn't surprised to see Mahomes drop. I was a little surprised to see Brady drop, only because I thought it was actually really incredible that he went and he switched teams, and then he wins the Super Bowl in his first try with the Bucs without Belichick. There was always that conversation about what's happening with Brady, Belichick, who's the real mastermind, who's the greatest of all time, and Brady solidified his legacy when he went to the Bucs and won that Super Bowl. So obviously a little bit of a different scenario here. We saw their prices both go down. So what we've seen is two different situations. One where the guys' prices go up after the Super Bowl, and one where the guys' prices go down. So let's look at price movements and take a look actually at the key players who were just in the Super Bowl and see what's happened to their prices in the last 14 days. And you can see here, really only Aaron Donald's prices have gone up. Cooper Kupp's too, I guess you could say, and then everybody else either flat like T. Higgins or down. And all the way down at the bottom, the two key guys for the Bengals, the two biggest players, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Even Stafford down 10%. So the two key quarterbacks are down, but Burrow down 19%. So this really tells me there was a lot of momentum, a lot of price spike, a lot of sales volume leading up to the Super Bowl, and people were very, very high on Burrow. Obviously losing, people start liquidating. It's kind of a silly thing. If you're really high on this guy, he's still gonna have a lot of momentum going into the next season. But what would have happened to Burrow if he had won? I'm really not sure. I tend to think what might have happened is what happened to Mahomes 2 years ago when he won. There was so much momentum, since the Bengals basically clinched the playoffs. It's hard to say exactly what would have happened with a win, but in a theoretical, I do think that there's a chance that his prices would at least be flat and holding and carrying through into next season. Now, let's take a look at the chart of what happened to Patrick Mahomes when they lost in that heartbreaker to the Bengals, and to Tom Brady when he basically announced his retirement from the league. So I've pulled up those same cards that I had before when those guys both, finished the Super Bowl in 2021. And scrolling down again, you can see exit from the playoffs, prices start to go down, in some cases pretty dramatically, in other cases, holding somewhat flat. But again, both players, Brady and Mahomes, leaving the playoffs, Brady retiring. Interesting to see his card prices going down. So this is another data point to look at and to take into consideration when we're trying to predict what's going to happen going forward. Now, if we look last year, kind of flashing back again, this is what happened in the offseason. I've got, again, the same exact cards, same players, Brady and Mahomes, and I want to know what happened between the end of March, so basically the beginning of April, all the way up until like August, right before, that's what I would consider the off season before we start to get to the preseason for the NFL. And again, not a lot of movement on these guys. It's actually really surprising. You would have thought there'd be some kind of price recovery, but in fact, Mahomes' prices just kept sliding down. A lot of that could have to do with the fact that his prices had just gone up so much when he won that Super Bowl in 2020. And obviously the market as a whole for sports cards we saw come down last year, especially from March, up and through August. The market was really going down in general, but we see Mahomes continue this slide. So when we're thinking about Burrow here, obviously he didn't even win the Super Bowl. What's going to happen? Again, more data points to consider. What about from the time that we got to basically preseason, so August 1st, until the season started last year on September 9th? Scrolling down, same cards again. Brady cards started to catch some momentum. Some of them, really starting to go up, especially his flagship, Bowman cards and Bowman Chrome. Now scrolling down, Mahomes, a little bit of momentum, a little bit of price pickup, but apparently people still weren't particularly high on Mahomes at that point. So the last thing I want to look at, again, we're trying to pull data together. We're trying to pull examples to try to create a narrative in our minds, to do some analysis and predict what's going to happen in this coming year. Let's take a look at Justin Herbert, who obviously had a lot of hype, a lot of momentum last year, winning Rookie of the Year, and Joe Burrow, who was coming off of that injury and there was a lot of uncertainty around. So same time frame, I'm looking at basically July until September when the season started. And if I scroll down, you can see Burrow's down risk card did have a lot of momentum behind it, but in general, not a ton of price movement, quite a bit of volatility and variation between their cards. So not particularly easy actually to predict or take any of this data between these two guys and say, oh, what's going to happen? Usually we see this big preseason run up for players. I think these guys, had a little bit more of that hype, at least Herbert did. And Burrow, there was just a lot of questions around. If he had been hurt, really hurt, and his offensive line obviously not very good, and we saw that in the playoffs. So there were questions around Burrow and what the Bengals were going to do this year. Now, anecdotally, I did hear a ton of people last year at the National looking to buy both of these guys. So when I got into this data, I was actually really surprised to see that their prices were so all over the map and that they hadn't actually increased. So now the question, what will happen to Burrow prices between now and next season? And honestly, it's really hard to say. The data tells me that the dip will likely continue into this summer. The data is inconclusive about what might happen just before the season. My gut, take that for what it is, my gut tells me that Burrow has that it factor to generate plenty of hype and excitement before the season. Even beyond the prospect of winning, he's the kind of guy that people love to watch. The AFC is loaded with young talent at quarterback, so it still remains to be seen, what's going to happen there. It also remains to be seen what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers. Where will he wind up next year? There's plenty of rumors that he's going to end up in Denver. It's hard to see him necessarily going into that division to compete head-to-head with Mahomes and Herbert, but if he does, that just means it gets even more competitive for Burrow to potentially get back to a Super Bowl anytime soon. Now, I personally see the Bengals having little to no chance of repeating the Super Bowl next year. The Bills will be back and better than ever potentially. The Chiefs will still be the Chiefs. The Ravens, if they get a few receiving weapons and stay healthy, could compete. So while I think I wouldn't bank on the Bengals being Vegas favorites to repeat to the Super Bowl, I would bank on plenty of collectors and investors being really excited about Joe Burrow for years to come. So what do you think will happen with Burrow? Was this a flash in the pan for the Bengals? Will they bolster their offensive line this season? Let me know down in the comments below. Now, one final thing that I wanted to show you. I did 2 episodes over the past 2 months on specific players. One on Mac Jones on December 17, and one on Jimmy Garoppolo on January 29. Now, using the data, both market movers and actual statistical data, I predicted that those guys were going to see collapses in their card values, and that it was best to avoid buying them for the time being. Now let's take a look at the data since then and see what has happened to their prices. So what I've done here is I've gone to the last 30 days. This is the time frame since roughly January 29 when I said don't buy Jimmy Garoppolo. His prices down 29% since then. People could argue, hey, if they had made it to the Super Bowl, if they had won the Super Bowl, maybe the things would be different. I'm still not so sure on Garoppolo. And if we go back to when I said stop buying Mac Jones at those hyped prices back 60 days ago, down 47%. I'm not bringing this up to gloat, nor to pretend that I know everything, nor that I get everything right. I'm bringing this up because I think this is a pretty strong testament to the fact that you can use data, the data in market movers, to make really smart decisions. Neither of these things were rocket science. Yet plenty of you did let me know down in the comments that you disagreed with my assessments, which is always totally fine. The overarching principle, though, here holds true. Avoid the hype, buy the dips, and have fun collecting. It's always more fun when you're not losing money, and that's what I'm going to keep trying to preach to help you make really good decisions. All right, thanks again for stopping by today. These episodes do take time to prepare and research, so I always hope that they help you make sound decisions. Until next time, happy investing.